Hi everyone, welcome back to Julia's story. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. The courthouse smells like wet paper and old plans. Fluorescent lights buzz like nerves trying to behave. I stand between a vending machine that ate my last dollar and a door that says family in small letters and big consequences. My dress is not white. It is honest. Black skirt, clean blouse, shoes that remember other lines I have stood in. Aunt Rosa smoothed the collar twice and said be a wall. Walls do not tremble. Adrian Vale arrives like a weather change. Gray coat, steady jaw, quiet that makes the hallway listen. People look because money teaches rooms where to point their eyes. He does not glance at me. He glances at the clock. That is how he loves things. On time. His counsel holds the red folder I will never forget. Matte finish. Edges like a rule. The paper inside is thick enough to pretend it is merciful. Clause 1 through 14 spelled out in ink that never learned to blush. No touch except for the cameras. No sleep under the same roof. No public contradictions. No romantic claims for 3 years and 1 day. Option to renew with mutual consent. Option to exit if either party breaks the quiet. If quiet breaks, I can breathe again. If quiet holds, Aunt Rosa keeps her shop. Luz keeps her papers safe from men who ask the wrong questions with polite voices. The debt my father left out on the curb stops pounding the door. They call our names. The clerk smiles the way clerks smile when they have seen too much truth to be impressed by any of it. We sit at a metal table that used to be a desk and now holds strangers together with staples. His pen is black and weighty. Mine is borrowed and clicks like a cough. We sign once, twice, 3 times. His signature is neat. Mine climbs 1 letter and refuses to come down for the final curve. When the ink dries, the room exhales. The ring slides onto my finger with the ease of a well-trained handcuff. Gold that feels like a down payment. The judge says the words without lace. The paper marriage breathes itself into existence. Cameras never arrive because this marriage was always built to outlast applause. The clerk stamps the seal. It thumps through the table and up into my bones. Outside, the sky holds the color of dishwater. A delivery truck hisses past like a sigh that failed. Mateo leans against the railing across the steps, tie loosened, eyes kind. Chief of staff to a man who turned quiet into a currency. My almost once. My not now. He watches me walk out beside his boss and does not flinch. You are late, he tells Adrian, not unkind. We are married, Adrian says, as if he is reporting the weather. Rosa waits by the curb with a paper bag holding empanadas and a rosary that has seen every kind of bargain. She looks at the ring, then at my face, then at the legal aid volunteer who stood with us inside. She gives me a nod that means I see you. Then she gives Adrian a nod that means I know exactly how real you are capable of being. The driver opens the car. Adrian pauses and turns, finally, to look at me. His eyes are the color of patience. Or stone. The difference is time. Our statement goes out at noon, he says. You take the back door at Vale Tower. The elevator on the service bank recognizes your name. You stand for 10 minutes at my side in the lobby. No questions. A smile that does not owe anyone its throat. I nod. I have practiced a smile for years that tells men they are not invited and still leaves a tip. He slips something into my palm. A key card with my new last name embossed in faint letters. Layla Vale. The surname sits on my skin like a feather with teeth. The car door shuts with a polite thud. Mateo watches the vehicle pull away and then walks to me like a person entering a church he does not trust. You do not have to be brave every second, he says. I already spent brave on the morning bus, I say. This is muscle memory. He almost smiles. Then his face remembers the tower and closes the door on the joke. If he tries to change the rules mid-game, call me, he says. His voice drops until it is only for the space between our shoes. Sienna is already rehearsing a headline. I know the name. Every woman in this city knows what that kind of woman can do to a room with a silk blouse and a hot mic. She is the long shadow with a public job title and keys to private doors. She is the one his board likes in photos because she is easy to understand. Rosa comes close and presses the paper bag into my hands like a talisman. Eat, she says. Then take your back door and keep the marble from learning your face too soon. Vale Tower licks the sky on the corner of a river that has learned to mind its business. Inside, marble and glass argue about who costs more. Security hand delivers me to the service bank like I am a package with insurance. The blue light reads the card. The screen says "Welcome, Layla," in letters that wish they were friendlier. Upstairs, the lobby is built for cameras and feet that never met a bus step. Plants are too green. Air is too clean. The room pretends every problem is solved as long as the glass is polished. I stand where Mateo marked with his eyes. 10 minutes. Head level. Shoulders square. Smile that means nothing. It is a skill. Adrian emerges from a corridor as if he belongs to the line where carpet meets tile. He takes his place at my side. A row of phones bloom. No flashes. Private vows like ours come with private lenses. Sienna appears behind the column and then does not. A slip of perfume and bright hair and a laugh far down a hall that never seems to echo. The word finally begins its slow parade through the comments on a dozen screens. Finally, he settles down. Finally, the board calms. Finally, a wife to make him human. I hold my smile like a box I do not want to open. 3 floors below, the kitchen runs on heat and knives and curses, the only place in this building that remembers honest verbs. I want to stand there where salt is still salt, not synergy. Instead, I count down the minute hand on the lobby clock. A maintenance man drifts through pushing a cart loaded with new light fixtures and a stack of laminate sheets in plastic sleeves. He bumps the cart into the corner of a column and swears softly. One sleeve slips and skids across the floor until it finds my shoe. I bend, scoop it, and feel the weight of a page I should not be touching. It is a rider. A clean addition to a contract that already thinks it owns the hour. Language crisp enough to cut. Effective upon expiration of the initial term, all rights of representation and announcement revert to the founder. Private partnership becomes public marriage at discretion of founder and communications head. A schedule attached in gray lists events I do not recognize. A river gala. A funder breakfast. Midnight champagne. My name beside his. Her name in the margin. Pencil neat. Sienna. I slide the page back into the sleeve and tuck it under the stack before the man notices what almost got free. He does not see my face go still. He swears at the column again and pushes on. Adrian does not look at me. He puts his hand in the air and the lobby does what it should. It stops needing him. A photographer lowers his phone and scratches his nose to make it look natural. A woman in a sharp coat who sells money to men who sleep badly says your wife is beautiful. He says thank you as if he is setting down a mug. My 10 minutes end. I turn. I find the service bank without a map because people like me carry the scent of back doors in our bones. In the elevator, I press my head against the cool mirror and let my breath fog the glass. It is the only indulgence I allow. 3 years. 1 day. A rider I did not sign with my blood says the silence I bought will be hauled onto a stage and made to dance at midnight. On the way down, I pass a floor where the lights flicker twice and then pretend they did not. In the hallway, a woman with a headset whispers into the air. Seating change. Slide 6 out. Remove the word rumor from the teleprompter. The cab doors open on the dock and the smell of diesel and cardboard and truth hits me with both hands. A courier lifts a crate and grunts a small hallelujah. I breathe until my ribs agree to stay put. My phone buzzes. Lose. She sent a photo of Aunt Rosa asleep in her chair, needle stuck in a seam, hand still stubborn. Under it, a line that steadies me. We eat tonight. We laugh tonight. You tell me a boring story, promise. I start to text back. The screen fills with a second message before my thumb lands. Unknown number. One line. Clause 15 lives where you did not look. The dock hums. The river keeps its thoughts to itself. I read the sentence twice. Then a third time where the words begin to taste like pennies. I slide the phone into my pocket. I walk into the dim of the basement corridor where the old paint chooses to peel in silence. The door marked Archives sits at the far end with a lock that likes to be flattered. I have flattered worse. In the shadow beyond the exit sign, someone breathes like a person who has practiced not being heard. A shoe scuffs. Light throws a thin blade across the floor. I do not move. The breath stops. And from the other side of the Archives door, metal whispers against metal, a file drawer sighs open, and a voice I know from last winter says my married name like a secret he plans to sell. The Archives door breathed like a sleeper with a secret. Metal on metal. A drawer sighed open. Paper whispered. Then a voice slid through the crack and said my married name the way a coin rolls across a bar. Mrs. Vale. Barden, from last winter. The stringer who sold gossip about fathers who died with bets on their tongues. His breath carried the sweet rot of cheap mints. The door eased wider. A sliver of his profile showed, a fox made of cartilage and nerve. He held up a phone in a zip bag like a fisherman with proof. Clause 15, he said, smug as a watermark. Lives where you did not look. I did not answer. Silence is a weapon if you can keep your hand steady. Footsteps clicked in the far corridor. He swore, shoved the bag into the top drawer, and slid out sideways past the exit sign with a grin that promised to be back. I pressed my palm flat to the cool paint and counted to 3. Then I stepped in. The Archives always smell the same. Dust that is one signature old. Boxes labeled with numbers that once owned lives. In the third bay, a cabinet gaped its metal mouth. Inside, a black binder sat with a white label that knew too much. Domestic. Additions. Private. I lifted it. Pages weighted like guilt. Tabs murmuring under my thumb. 14 was where my memory stopped. 15 waited, unmarked. I turned the tab with a nail and found a page printed in clean black, a paragraph that had kept its knife under the table. Upon expiration of the initial term, any public act of affection initiated by the founder toward the spouse shall be deemed mutual consent to convert the agreement into a full marital partnership for a minimum of 2 years. Communications Director assumes control of announcement, schedule, and image rights. Non-compliance triggers liquidated damages payable by spouse to foundation in the amount listed on Schedule C. Breach authorizes publicity to preserve market stability. A sentence about my mouth and his hand and a minimum of 2 years. A penalty priced like a building. My name tucked into the math with the elegance of a trap. I took a fast photo, then another with the flash off. Paper shows its bones when you hold it wrong. I slid the binder back. I closed the drawer and let it kiss shut. Upstairs, the tower rehearsed. A woman with a headset checked stems and smiles. A florist argued with air. The lobby clock ticked like a small hammer. They sent me to etiquette the way people send wine to be decanted. The coach wore navy and kindness like armor. Shoulders down. Chin neutral. 8 seconds of eye contact. Laugh from the middle of the chest, not the throat. When in doubt, smooth the coat, do not touch the hair. You are a statement, not a mirror. Sienna arrived 15 minutes late and made the room act like time had obeyed her anyway. Silk blouse the color of sky after rain. Heel that did not forgive tile. Her smile warmed, then cooled, then found its resting place. Layla, she said. Thank you for keeping the lobby calm. He needs stillness today. I nodded. Her perfume practiced being expensive without trying. She took my hands like we were cousins in a wedding line and squeezed just enough to leave a print. We will keep the story clean, she said. You will hate it less if you do not fight the rhythm. Tonight is rehearsal. Tomorrow we write the first page. Wear bone or blush. No prints. The river eats patterns on camera. Her phone flashed. The name on the lock screen was a number turned into a pet. She set it face down and smiled with all her teeth. I did the walk again at the coach's nod. Arms loose, foot soft, chin steady. My heart pounded. It always does when I have to pretend to be a door instead of a person. By afternoon, the board's art advisor had decided love looks better under glass. They dragged us to a gallery hang in a private lounge to stage candids for people who still believe candids exist. White walls, soft track lights, tiny cheese cubes claiming they were enough. I stood where I was told and counted the ways my name could be used to cover bad math. A painting of a river leaned toward me until it became the window behind it. Reflection layered on reflection. In the glass, a hallway cooled by air that did not want to be breathed. And in that hallway, a shape I know without wanting to. His jaw, her hair. His mouth tilting toward hers in the space where money learns to be quiet. The kiss was small and practiced. The kind you give to a habit when the room promises to keep its eyes shut. My fingers went cold against the champagne flute. The coach asked me if I needed water. I said no, and the words scratched. Sienna re-entered the lounge with her smile restored and a speck of mascara corrected. Adrian followed 2 beats later with his collar straight and his eyes unreadable. He saw me and did not look away. He never does. That is his power. He believes he is being honest when he offers a wall without windows. Mateo found me near the exit where the caterers stacked trays that still remembered heat. He lowered his voice until it belonged to both of us. You look like a person trying not to answer a fire alarm, he said. Your boss put a clause in my throat, I said. He sucked in breath through his teeth. 15, he said. You knew, I said. He exhaled sharp. I warned him. He called it insurance against scandal. Sienna called it structure. He looks at me now like he is asking our old god to absolve his new money. A server dropped a knife in the kitchen. The metal sang like a slender bell. My hands stopped shaking. When danger finally names itself, adrenaline gives up its throne to anger. I left before my face taught the paintings how to flinch. In the car, the city pressed its brow to the window. Neon bruised the glass. Home is a brownstone with a door that sticks and a stare that counts your weight out loud. Aunt Rosa sat at the kitchen table with a seam ripper, glasses low on her nose. Tell me it was boring, she said, not looking up. They printed my name on a card that opens doors I did not ask to walk through, I said. Also they tucked a clause behind the couch and left crumbs for the fox to find. She finally lifted her eyes. Her mouth turned into a straight line that could sew a wound. You knew their kind would not stop at the first price, she said. Eat while you talk. You argue clearer when your hands are busy. We ate empanadas that smelled like patience and garlic. Luz called from her bedroom to ask if she could stay late at the library. She had a midterm and a girl she did not want me to meet yet. Rosa winked and said the library loves late. When I left to walk the block, the night had decided to clean itself. Streetlights puddled gold. The deli cat made his rounds, bored and sovereign. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. 2 lines. Wardrobe in an hour. River deck rehearsal. Midnight is a moment, not a minute. Sienna signs her messages even when the name does not appear. I went back upstairs and changed. Bone, not blush. The mirror tried to sell me a version of myself that looked too easy to break. I refused her. I braided my hair with the ends tucked like a promise with its own knife. At Vale Tower, the river deck waited with ropes and lanterns and a floor waxed to gilt. The comms crew taped marks where stands would go. A teleprompter blinked cliches and then erased them. On the deck's edge, a heater breathed loud to calm a kind of wind that never listens. Sienna walked the length of the boards in flats that lied about comfort. She examined the horizon as if it had applied for a job. She pointed to an empty patch of air beside the champagne pyramid. "You stand here when he steps close," she said. "He will touch your waist for 3 seconds. You will turn your face up at the 2. The kiss will land on the 3. It will read as relief." Relief had no business being anywhere near my mouth. She saw it in my jaw. She softened 1 centimeter. "It is a story," she said. "A story is not a sin." Behind her, through the glass door, Adrian stood alone for a beat, hands in his pockets, the posture of a man who can order a blizzard not to hit his block. Our eyes met. He held it. I held it back. The deck flexed under my heels like a living thing deciding whose side to take. A stagehand tested the lights and turned them off again. For a breath, the world went dark except for the river, which kept its own counsel. In that dark, my phone buzzed at my hip. "Matteo." "Someone pulled a rider in the drawer you were about to open," his text said. "Barden sold it, then doubled back. Do not let Sienna write your mouth." I tucked the phone away and let my spine choose. The heater sighed. The comms crew moved stands like chess. Sienna checked her notes and recited the order to no one. Sequence. Thank donors. Claim wife. Promise future. Kiss. By the door, Adrian lifted his hand like a man calling a room to behave. He stepped toward the mark that belonged to him. I took my place at the edge of the river and felt Clause 15 sit up inside the paper and lick its teeth. By dusk, the river turned to black glass, and the deck took on that brittle shine money loves. Lanterns lined the rail like obedient moons. A harpist played songs that used to mean something before they were hired. The heaters purred, and the city leaned in as if it owned the view. Aunt Rosa pressed 2 straight pins into my palm before I left the brownstone. "For luck," she said. "Also for fabric that forgets its manners." I slid one into the seam at my waist and one into the hem where a girl from a sewing room knows to hide a weapon. Bone dress. Flat sandals tucked into my bag for later. A thin coat that looked innocent but could hold a phone and a card without telling. I braided my hair low and tight. I drew my mouth in a shade that reads as kind from far away and as warning up close. Vale Tower's deck had been waxed to a mirror. Sienna stood at the edge with a tablet and a microphone that knew her hand now better than it knows his. She tested lines with her lips barely moving. "Thank you for believing in us. Thank you for trusting our future. Thank you for your patience while we rewrite the story in real time." Crew tape marked our places. Someone had chalked a neat 3 near the champagne pyramid. That was the time my mouth would be asked to be complicit. The harpist plucked the same arpeggio again and again until gooseflesh learned my arms. Matteo appeared at my shoulder like a good habit. He did not touch me. He stared out at the river until it spoke. "When he turns," he said, "his left hand goes to the waist. That is how he steadies speeches. If he is nervous, he will hold you tighter. If he is lying to himself, he will let go too soon." I stared at the lane of water where a barge pushed past and pulled night along with it. "If he tries," I said, "my head will turn on 2 beats toward the light." He huffed something that wanted to be a laugh and could not afford it. A trick with timing might save face on camera, but it does nothing to a clause that calls a frame the truth. He glanced over. His voice lowered. "If the kiss lands, you cannot argue consent with men who think optics are law." "Then get me a law that remembers its soul," I said. He exhaled. He slipped a folded napkin into my hand. On it, a number no one admits to. A judge who still reads paper. A clerk who hates loopholes more than she hates noise. If tonight goes the way her name says it will, call her before dawn. Inside the glass, the board took their warm seats. Oliver Grant stood with a drink that was not drinking. Older investors wore faces that remembered recessions like unfaithful lovers. New money wore optimism like a fresh suit. Counsel hovered, ready to baptize sins simple. Barden lurked near a pillar with the sly certainty of a man who has already cashed a check. Sienna came to me with a scarf, cashmere like a sigh. She draped it and adjusted a fraction that would look accidental in photographs. "You look like a promise kept," she said. Her smile did not hold heat. The language of victory never does. I breathed in. I breathed out. The harpist switched to something sweet that the river ignored. I stepped onto my mark as the host called our names with a tone that wanted to make itself immortal. Adrian walked out of the glass like the deck had been waiting for his weight. Navy suit, open collar, jaw that had learned stubborn under softer women. He nodded to the donors, to the board, to the ghosts. He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw a boy who had once shared a sandwich in a schoolyard he pretends not to remember. Then the man returned and the boy went under. It is always that fast. "Thank you for coming," he said into the mic. "Thank you for believing in work that takes time. Thank you for welcoming my wife." My wife. The words rolled across the deck and came back with applause attached. Sienna's chin tipped by half degrees, measuring angles. The harpist found a swell. The heaters sighed. Cameras leaned forward to drink. I felt the straight pin in the seam of my waist. I felt the weight of clause 15 gather itself like a cat about to pounce. Adrian turned toward me on the beat Sienna had counted. Left hand lifted. Hover. Settle. I felt the pressure at my waist. His palm was warm. He did not grip. He held me like a man trying not to frighten a wild thing. His mouth softened a fraction. The crowd quieted. Even the river seemed to wait for the three. On one, my breath stopped. On two, I turned my face toward the light, the way we had rehearsed, so it would read as relief. On three, his mouth came down and found the corner of mine because his angle was human, not mechanical. The heat was brief. The flash was not. The deck exploded in applause with a sound that felt like snow sliding off a roof. Sienna lifted her tablet to check the frame. Counsel nodded to no one and to a paragraph printed months ago. The board finally smiled without teeth. Something inside me sat up with a snarl. The kiss was a sentence he believed would save us both. To the clause, it was a signature it had been chewing for 3 years. I pulled back. He did not chase the moment. He stepped an inch away and let the applause spend itself. That is his tell. He does not like to feed frenzy. He thinks restraint absolves him. Tonight restraint would be the prosecution's best witness. The mic caught my breath in a little noise that made heads tilt. Sienna heard it. She flicked her eyes left, and a junior staffer brought the printed schedule. Claim wife. Toast. Future. Fireworks. A lens caught my face in profile. In that reflection, I saw enough of my father to burn. The man who promised we would keep the house if I just believed, then handed the keys to a man who counted our tears as proof he had bargained well. Regret is a heavy word. Men wear it like cologne. Women wear it like debt. Adrian lifted the flute that had been placed by his elbow. He waited for the tap of crystal against Mike. The sound he made was clean and expensive. He began. Words shaped like gratitude and future. A line about second chances meant for donors and overheard by God. Behind his shoulder, the teleprompter fed him the safe nouns. At the far rail, Jolene angled her phone with a grin that could sell knives to wind. Barden raised his camera 2 inches and rehearsed the caption he would sell if the photo could be framed unfair. I slid my hand to my hem and felt the second straight pin. Rosa taught us to stitch and to cut. My pulse found a drum. Matteo stood by the removable panel over the power feed. He looked like a man ready to trip a wire if I blinked. Sienna stepped to the edge of frame and signed to the lighting tech. Lift half a stop. Warm the whites. Give love a fair chance to look like love. The heater coughed. The river wind ran a finger down my spine. Adrian said my name slow and careful into the mic. The day he signed the first paper, he had said it like a list item. Tonight it came out like something he had realized was heavy and wanted to carry right. I could let this city call our story a redemption arc and sleep in a life I negotiated with a pen instead of a heart. I could cash peace in 10-second clips for 2 clean years and a room with a blue view. Women have survived worse and called it grace. The deck shimmered with the weight of 1,000 small choices. Counsel shifted. The harpist went bright and tidy. Oliver checked his watch the way a man checks the wind at the edge of a cliff. Sienna took one small step toward the camera line and lifted her chin. Now, her mouth shaped in silence. My phone buzzed once inside the coat where I had tucked it. It was the number on Matteo's napkin. The judge who still reads paper. One line. If he has made a public act, do not give them your breath. Walk off. File before dawn. Breath is a tiny price and the most expensive thing I own. Adrian raised the flute and held it so we could drink from the same future on camera. Another trick. Another clean screenshot for rooms that thirst. I did not lift mine. A soundless ripple moved through the front row. Sienna's tablet paused. Jolene's eyebrows peaked. Matteo did not move. His shoulder tightened so slightly a less trained I would have missed it. Layla, Adrian said, soft and for me, not for the room. I looked into his face and saw the apology standing there with its hands full of flowers it did not know how to hold. I could have let that apology make my mouth kind. I could have let us all leave with a shorter pain. I set my flute on the rail. My hand did not shake. The heaters ticked like old radiators. The river breathed. The deck held. I leaned to his ear and gave him one sentence I have been saving for 3 years, voiced low so the mic would not steal it for other people. When I stepped back, regret crawled up his throat and found a seat behind his eyes like a judge taking the bench. Sienna saw the change. She cut the lights warmer to fake tenderness. Counsel whispered to a phone. Oliver smiled once, very small, like a man who loves to watch a storm do the work of gravity. The harpist lost the shape of the song for one beat and caught it again. Cameras blinked. The room's praise machine tried to recover. It could not find the rhythm because the human pulse had changed tempo. I stepped away from my mark. A stagehand misheard a cue and killed a lantern by the far rail. In the dim, a man with a fox jaw slithered along the glass with a little bag in his hand and the triumphant posture of a thief returning to a crime scene for dessert. Barden lifted the zip bag with a flourish as if he had caught a fish. Matteo moved. Sienna moved. Security hesitated because money loves hesitation. I broke the line of donors with a turn sharp enough to make Silk sigh. The phone swung toward me like sunflowers. Somewhere a fuse inside the tower hiccuped and exhaled. The harp stuttered. Barden's bag began to open. And behind all of it, 2 floors down, a fire door alarm began to wail, thin and insistent, the exact note that tells a building every hidden story it shelters has decided to panic at once. The alarm cut through the river music like a wire. Thin. Insistent. Honest. Heads turned. Phones swung. The heaters gulped, recovered, and failed to calm the air. Barden hustled along the glass with his little prize bag lifted like a medal. Matteo stepped in a clean line and met him where the lantern had died. They spoke in low notes that did not travel. Barden grinned, tried to pivot, caught a heel on the cable run, and went down hard enough to knock the zipper loose. Plastic slid. Something bright skittered across the waxed deck like a coin that had chosen freedom. A key card. Not veil blue. Bone white. One corner notched. Handwritten on a strip of tape at the back, a slip of a name that learned to hide while still bragging. Sienna. I moved before security remembered their job. The harpist paused to pretend nothing had happened. Sienna's head snapped, the way a cat's does when it smells the drawer you opened. Mateo's shoe found the card. Mine found his. We passed it once like a relay, heel to toe, a choreography built on panic and practice. The alarm howled 2 floors below. The press drew in its breath like a choir awaiting permission. Counsel tried to turn a shrug into a sermon. Sienna recalculated the length of the evening with a blink. Mateo leaned at my shoulder without touching. East elevators, he said. Not the main bank. She keeps a place where the river bends. If the alarm is real, the lobby will be sticky. Take the service stairs to the lower deck. I will give you 90 seconds of blindness. I slid the bone-white card into the seam of my dress where Aunt Rosa had taught me to hide a life. Sienna raised her tablet and spoke into the mic with honey and iron. A minor safety check, she said. Please enjoy the view while we ensure the building remains the city's safest room. The city hates being lied to, but it loves a pretty voice while it is being lied to. The crowd's noise softened to a purr. I stepped off my mark and walked the edge of the rail like I owned it. Security saw a wife crossing to air and blinked. In that blink, I was gone. The service stairs ran cool and narrow. My breath hit the concrete wall and broke. On 12 a door stood propped with a tray. I slipped through, cut across the catering hall, and spotted the second set of stairs where a busser taught a lighter to behave. He looked up, recognized a woman who needed to move, and let me. The east elevators woke for the card like a dog that knew the wrong whistle. The cab swallowed me without a question. It slid down, glided, side open to a hallway with carpet that smelled expensive in a way that remembered nothing about rain. The alarm's voice was a hum here, thin as gossip behind a closed door. The bone-white card touched a plate that blinked once, green like a secret letting itself be believed. The door clicked. Inside, silence did not just live, it curated itself. Sienna's flat wore the river like jewelry. Glass from hip to sky. Soft chairs that never met a spilled story. A long marble island sleek enough to shave a lie. 2 champagne flutes waited at half fill, bubbles trying to remember why they rose. A silk blouse flung over a chair, the color of apology after midnight. On the console, a leather tray held a cufflink that did not belong to a woman and a key ring with a tiny brass tag etched with a single letter. V. Receipts waited where rich people keep proof they do not believe will ever be needed. Top drawer, left of the stove. A bundle bound with neat elastic bands. I tugged one free. Jeweler. Westbury. 42,000. Date stamped inside our paper years. Memo line. Initial S. Airline. 2 seats. Last winter. Outbound to an island that sells forgiveness and sunsets. Traveler 1 name masked to initials. Traveler 2 name S. Vale. Not a mistake. A cold joke. Lease. 4 pages. Shell company no one will say out loud. A signature that learned to trace itself like a ghost. On the last line, auto-renew set to the anniversary date of a contract that read my mouth like a switch. My fingers steadied while my stomach failed to find the floor. The receipts bled red stamps, paid and delivered. Paid by a fund tied to a foundation that writes mercy across brochures in silver ink. Delivered to this door. To this river. To this glass. I laid the papers on the marble in a row the way Aunt Rosa lays pattern pieces when she wants a dress to tell the truth. The numbers made a low hum in my spine. The months lined up. The lies learned a calendar. A phone buzzed under the silk blouse and vibrated its way to the edge of the chair like a nervous animal. I caught it. Screen lit. A message preview marched across with the confident stride of a person who uses first names as if they invented them. Change of plan. East elevator. 5 minutes. Bring the folder. We announce at midnight or we manufacture morning. Mateo. No, not Mateo. The contact name said M. And in this world M is a letter with too many owners. I slid the phone back under silk and kept breathing. Outside the window, the river drew a long black breath of its own. The alarm below fell to a softer wail. The city began to pretend it had calmed down. I opened the second drawer. Travel frames unused piled like promises that could not decide if they were sad or arrogant. An envelope unsealed. Inside, photo prints unasked for in a life that worships screens. Sienna in sunglasses at an island's edge. A man lean and familiar, skin burned darker by a sun he did not earn. Jaw I have kissed when the city shouted too loudly. Not Adrian. Mateo. The edges sliced my thumb. I tasted iron and time. A hinge whispered. The door breathed. My name entered the flat in a smoke-thin voice that smiles when it cuts. Layla. I turned. Sienna stood in the doorway with her hand still on the plate and her gaze taking inventory. The alarm painted a red pulse along the hall behind her. She was alone, or she wanted me to think she was. She looked at the receipts on the island, the photos under my thumb, the bone-white card peeking at my hip like a witness who is too brave to play dead. She walked in on quiet feet and stopped at a civility's distance. No makeup now. Eyes clean. Truth in them like winter sun. She studied my face and decided where to put the knife. If you take this into a room with microphones, she said, you will burn more than his pride. I did not answer. The river threw a shard of light across the floor and it sliced our ankles without leaving blood. The alarm held its thin note like a violinist who refuses to admit she needs air. Sienna reached for the decanter, poured herself a quarter-inch of water, and did not drink. She placed the glass on the marble near the airline receipt and traced its rim with one finger. You think I am the reason you hate him, she said. I am a mirror. He rehearsed this with me because he was always going to perform it with you. Behind her the hall light shifted. Soft footfall. The shadow of a man shaped itself on the carpet outside the door. Not long. Not heavy. Familiar. I set the receipts into my bag with a motion that would look like smoothing a scarf on camera. Sienna's mouth tilted. She had seen every trick a woman makes when she steals her life back in pieces. Do not turn this into your origin story, she said, very calm. It will make you smaller than your rage. He will see you as a lesson instead of a person. A key slid into the lock behind her, slow, careful, the way guilt enters a home it paid for. The door handle turned. Sienna did not look back. She kept her eyes on me. Choose, Layla, she said. The door opened on breath held too long. Mateo stepped over the threshold with a folder tucked beneath his coat and a look on his face I had never seen pointed at me. Regret. Purpose. A kind of tenderness that had come to collect its own debt. The hallway fire strobe flared red against his cheekbone. A second strobe answered from the far end. The tower took a long, low inhale as if it knew what it was about to watch and wanted to be sure it remembered how to say it later. Mateo closed the door with the same care a thief gives to a sleeping house. The folder under his coat thumped once against his ribs. Sienna did not move. She let him pass her shoulder like a shadow changing owners. You chose a poor time to grow courage, she said. I slid the receipts deeper into my bag until the leather learned their shape. The bone-white key pressed my hip like a truth that wanted to be used again. The alarm's thin wail ran along the baseboards and climbed the glass like ivy. Mateo set the folder on the marble. He did not touch me. He did not touch Sienna. He opened the cover and showed me a page that had waited for breath. Schedule C. Liquidated damages. A number that could break a city bus into silence for a year. At the bottom, initials I knew too well. AV. An S. A counseling fee wrapped in clean words and bile. He looked at Sienna. "You wrote this," he said. His voice was tired. Not angry yet. A man walking toward it. She traced the rim of her glass. "He asked for it," she said. "He wanted a way to make his heart behave if it tried to forget the plan. He wanted the power to fix a narrative with a gesture. You men always want the power to fix what you break with a word that sounds like love." I stepped around the island and felt the floor tilt a degree toward the river. Mateo's hand twitched and then stayed, as if every version of the past were taking turns with his wrist. The island clock ticked once. The elevator hummed far away. Down on the deck a cheer rose and died as a false all-clear learned shame. "I am taking this," I said. "The receipts. The page. The names." Sienna lifted one shoulder. "You will think a camera saves you," she said. "Cameras like the person with the cleaner story." Mateo found my eyes. The look he gave me had no angles left to hide behind. "I was wrong," he said. "I thought I could cut this out with scissors and a schedule. I was wrong. I did not forgive him. I did not decide yet whether to slice." I picked up the folder. I picked up my bag. I left the flat without making a noise a hallway could gossip about. The alarm's voice thinned to a whine that even guilt could ignore. I took the east elevator down and walked into a city that had just remembered night is not a costume. I needed a room where money forgets its body. I needed the only place left that had my father's breath in it. The church on 3rd has been closed for years. The door still sticks. The light above the side entrance flickers with the stubbornness of a saint that refuses to be replaced. I know the window that never latched right. I slipped through the alley and found it with my fingers like a woman remembering a scar. Inside, dust hung in the cold air like fine regret. The pews were covered in sheets that looked like low clouds. The votive stand beside the chipped saint held 3 unspent candles and a pile of change people left when they ran out of words. I lit one. The flame shook. It stayed. I set the folder on the altar rail. I set the receipts beneath it. I pressed my palms to the wood and let my shoulders drop for the first time since the deck learned Clause 15's name. My father used to bring us here when the rain made the streets loud. He would light a candle and tell the saint a story about a man who paid what he owed and was forgiven enough to go on. He forgot to tell the part where he stopped paying and the street came to collect us instead. Aunt Rosa stitched through that storm with a needle like a tiny sword. She kept the shop open because she knows how to make beauty survive winter. When the men with polite voices started asking about my sister's papers, Rosa sold her only good ring and bought time. I signed a contract that felt like a dam. I told her it was a bridge. I told Luz to study and not to look back when the door whispered. I lied in the good direction. I said it out loud now because this building only understands words that have left the mouth. I married a quiet man to pay a debt. I asked nothing from him but silence and his signature on the parts that mattered to my family and my sleep. He cheated on that silence with a woman who sells storms to rooms for a living. I would have forgiven that if he had not also tried to turn my breath into a product. The door near the sacristy breathed. Mateo stepped in, stepped slow, hands visible. He stood 2 pews back, and the cold made his voice clean. Tell me what you need, he said. I said. Tell the truth about the island. Tell the truth about the fees. Tell the truth about the way you put your head down and help them stack a clause that would steal my mouth. His face folded in one place and held. I gave Sienna cover because I thought holding 2 fires would teach them manners, he said. I took those trips because I thought I could move her where she would not cut you. I wrote memos I did not sign and told myself I was building a better exit. I was a coward with a pen. He took a breath that sounded like cold metal. I will testify. I will put my name where it will hurt me. I will say what I did and not frame it as strategy. The candle leaned in the draft. I cupped it and it steadied. My throat found that strong roughness that comes when a body chooses something that costs. I am not staying in this story so he can learn how to be a man in the forgiving season, I said. I am staying long enough to make the paper confess, and then I am walking out of the frame. If he wants a marriage, he will find one later without a board attached. Mateo nodded like a man told to stand still while a doctor digs a bullet out. He moved to the front pew and sat on the edge and did not ask for my hand. He has learned something, then. The church shifted. Old buildings do this when they remember. A light somewhere popped. A whisper moved through the rafters that could have been a rat or a hymn. I opened the folder and took a photo of Schedule C by candle. The camera lens caught the grain in the paper and the fine crease where Sienna's nail had pressed while she aligned it. My phone buzzed on the rail. A number I did not know and knew anyway. Adrian. Where are you? He wrote. The deck is a circus. The alarm was a test that told me things you already knew. Come back. We can stop this in a room with closed doors before they break you in the open. I stared at the words until they looked like another man's apology printed on a napkin. The candle spit once and corrected itself. I typed slow to keep from cutting my fingers on the keys. I am at the place where you do not get to talk, I wrote. Bring your regret in shoes that can handle dust. The dots appeared. Stopped. Appeared again. A second message chased the first from a different number. Sienna. If you humiliate him tonight, she wrote, he will finally learn to love you the way this city demands its heroes be loved. It will break both of you. Choose a smaller knife. I put the phone face down. The candle had burned a low cup into the wax. The flame showed a little tongue. I raised my eyes to the saint with the chipped nose and spoke for the girl I was before signatures taught me their weight. I signed to save a door. I will not let them make my mouth their hinge. The church door clicked. Wind pulled a strand of my braid loose and set it against my cheek like a scold. The aisle filled with a figure that could move a room with or without a mic. Adrian stepped in, coat open, breath pale. He looked taller in this light, thinner too, as if regret had found a way to wear him already. He stopped when he saw the altar rail turned into a desk, the papers, the candle, the man in the pew who used to be his right hand and is now my confession witness. He looked at me and did not look away. Layla, he said. The sound of my name did not ask to be forgiven. It asked to be heard. He took one careful step closer and the floor answered with an old board creak, the kind that makes a house remember its vows. You will not like what I say next, I said. I know, he said. I lifted the folder. I lifted the receipts. I held up the photo that caught the kick plate reflection of a ring I did not wear and a mouth that did not belong to me. I let him watch the candlelight climb the paper like a slow fire. You set a clause to make my breath count as consent, I said. You paid for another woman's silence with money that wore a charity mask. You kissed me on the deck to trigger a trap you built. You will sit tomorrow and sign away the teeth you gave the board, and you will do it without asking me to smile. Then you will stand in front of your river and speak my name as a person you wronged, not a brand you bought. His face held still. A flicker in the eyes, not fear. Knowledge settling in like winter. He placed his hand on the back of the pew as if the wood needed to be kept from falling. And tonight, he said. Tonight I walk, I said. I leave the deck. I do not give your cameras a second act. I file before dawn with a judge who still reads in paper. If you want any version of a life with me, you meet me there when her clerk unlocks the door. Not with gifts. With your pen and your quiet. He closed his eyes once, and when he opened them there was the boy again, the one with half a sandwich and sun on his throat, and then the man returned, built of steel and choices. He nodded. It was small and it was real. Wind touched the flame and made it lean. Footsteps echoed in the alley outside. A car idled with lights off. In the rafters, something with wings shifted like a blessing that cannot decide who to favor. My phone lit on its own. Jolene's feed. Live. The deck. Sienna at the rail with the mic. The caption unrolling like a carpet. The wife has fled. The city deserves a reason. The doors of the church boomed once with a heavy palm. Then again. The handle shook. Someone had found the window that never latched right. A shadow bent to try it. Matteo stood. Adrian turned toward the sound, jaw set and hands empty. I pinched the candle out with 2 fingers, and the smoke curled up like a thin black ribbon that drew a line between what I had been and what I was about to do. The latch scraped. The window gave. Cold air poured in. I lifted the folder and the bag and the bone-white key. I looked at the man I married on paper and the man who had betrayed me with good intentions and bad travel, and told them the same thing. Do not follow unless you can keep your promises quiet. The shadow at the window climbed through. The flicker above the side door went dark. The aisle filled with a third silhouette that moved like a woman who believes she owns the hour. Sienna said my name as if she had paid for it, and the city, just beyond the wall, started to shout. Sienna stepped through the church window like night in heels. Her coat skimmed the pew and bled shadow onto the aisle. She did not blink at the cold. She did not blink at the candle smoke that braided the air like a warning. Give me the folder, Layla, she said. Let me end this where it will not ruin you. No, I said. She smiled. The kind of smile that has survived many clean defeats. Then she did the most honest thing she had done all year. She told the truth. He will sign anything tonight if you look hurt enough, she said. He listens to your pain when the room is empty. He loves you best at the door. Make it real for him and he will kneel for paper. Matteo shifted, torn between rage and an apology that would not fix a brick. Adrian stood with his palm on the pew back like a man steadying a boat. You do not decide the weight of my pain, I told her. Not tonight. She watched me for one breath, calculated futures, and nodded once like a general conceding a single hill to win a longer war. Then she reached into her coat, took out a key I already had in my pocket, and placed it on the rail as if she were returning a ring to a god she did not believe in. You were always going to find all of it, she said. So find the last page. Penthouse safe. Behind the black and white of the boy at the lake. Code is your wedding date backward. He will be there in 10 minutes. He thinks he can bargain. He cannot. But he will try. She turned, climbed through the window she had forced, and was gone, footsteps neat in the alley. The flicker above the door struggled, then steadied. The city shouted somewhere far and then closer. I looked at Adrian. He did not ask how Sienna knew the code. He did not ask why she helped me. His mouth learned a hard line that meant he finally understood how many rooms she could cross without a guard. You have 10 minutes, he said. I ran. The tower's service lived 8 floors like a song on repeat. I moved through back halls with the speed of someone who has memorized exits in case of fires that are not literal. The penthouse elevator waited with a light that pretended it was kind. The card at my hip hummed in the plate. The door slid. Air like expensive winter met my face. His place was glass and angles and a silence that did not trust itself. On the wall above the console, a black and white photo of a boy at a lake smiled out at a life that had not yet been taught to sign for damage. I lifted the frame. The safe crouched behind it like a second mouth. The code turned with the soft reluctance of a dog deciding it should obey. The handle gave. Inside, paper layered on paper like feathers hiding broken bone. I pulled the top file and felt the weight of language that will never admit it is violent. Addenda. Extensions. The failed crush of a rumor clause rewritten twice and salted with new nouns. Under it, clean proof of dirty money. Transfers from a shell with a charitable name to a shell with a landlord. Sienna's flat. Dates lined up with kisses in galleries and flights that apologized in sun. At the back sat a smaller envelope sealed in wax with an old-fashioned stamp that made a joke out of time. I broke it with my thumbnail. Inside, one page in his handwriting. The only thing in this room that had not been printed by a machine. If you are reading this, I waited too long, it said. I can sign away my teeth. I cannot sign away the hurt. I do not have a language for what I owe you. I have a pen. I will use it. Footsteps in the outer hall. Not hurried. Decided. The door opened without the theatrics of rage. Adrian stepped inside and shut the world out with a click that sounded like a promise choosing a side. He saw the open safe. He saw the proof lined on the console like knives waiting their turn. He saw the wax seal peeled back and did not ask what it had once kept. He walked to the window, looked at the river, and spoke to the glass. I thought I could keep love as a private privilege while I managed the public version like a portfolio, he said. I thought my care would make the theft feel less like theft. I forgot that paper only looks gentle when you are the one holding the pen. You built a door with my name on it and hid the hinge in your mouth, I said. Tonight the hinge belongs to me. He nodded. He took the chair at the island that never learned to feed anyone and sat like a man before a surgeon. Tell me what to sign, he said. The list lived in my throat already. You see the rumor clause that gives the board a blade. You put your votes into a trust that requires worker pay before anything else moves. You refund the foundation you used as a sleeve for your gifts. You bar any interim steward who ever paid a rival with time or a flight. You write my name out of the brand and back into the book as a citizen, not an asset. Done, he said. You sorry does not go on a stage, I said. I do not want it on a stage, he said. We worked the night like people who had decided to earn their breath. Mateo arrived without being called, eyes clear for once. He took dictation from my mouth and turned it into clean lines the clerk could stamp. He struck out every phrase Sienna ever taught the board to use when it wanted to make harm sound hygienic. He removed the word rumor as a tool, left it as a word. Around 2 the heaters on the river deck died and learned humility. Around 3 Oliver's counsel left a message with a velvet threat. Around 4 Aunt Rosa texted a picture of Luz asleep on the couch with a book across her ribs and the rosary looped over the lamp like a lasso waiting for a saint. At 5 the sky remembered it could be gray again. At 6 the lobby filled with reporters who smelled dawn like coffee. At 7 the clerk who still reads paper turned the key in a door that prefers early. We stood under fluorescence that peeled the night off our faces and handed her a stack that would make a tower change shape. The clerk read without hurry. She looked at me first, then at him. Her stamp came down heavy enough to cancel what needed canceling. She initialed 3 corners with a hand that did not tremble. She slid duplicates across the counter. The pages were warm and real. You keep a copy, she said to me. You carry it. You do not hand it to a man in a suit just because he smiles. We left the courthouse into a morning that had not yet decided how to read us. The stone steps held cold like a grudge. The cameras had learned to wait at the river. For 1 block we were only 2 people in shoes that had earned a sit. We did not sit. Boardroom morning wore glass like armor and coffee like incense. The table swam with faces that believed they invented prudence. Oliver stood at the window as if the river worked for him. Sienna took a chair against the wall and did not hide. Mateo placed the stamped stack in front of the clerk and clicked a pen that knows how to make history behave. Adrian did not take his usual seat. He stood beside me. Not behind. Not ahead. Beside. He spoke before anyone could turn the air into a blanket. We rescind the clause that attempts to convert performance into consent, he said. We move supervotes into a trust with worker proof as its lock. We bar rumor as a mechanism of control. We repay what was laundered through mercy. We open independent review with names that are not friends. The General Counsel inhaled to say words like fiduciary and market stability. The chair lifted 1 finger and the words tripped. Jolene posted a clip at the 9th minute of the meeting. Cameras had been barred, but cameras do not need doors when rooms are made of glass. Her caption read a sentence that would be quoted badly all day. The wife wrote the line, and the city made the room read it. Oliver kept his eyes on the river. He is the kind of man who can wait for a building to learn his shape. He turned finally, very slowly, and let a small smile map his mouth. You will bleed value for this, he said to Adrian. He looked at me, and then at Sienna, and then at the stack. You will make enemies with better handwriting than you. Adrian nodded as if the cost had already cleared his account. Then we will pay with money we can explain, he said. We will make enemies we can see in daylight. The chair set the first motion on the table. The clerk steadied her pen. Hands rose. Some fast. Some slow. Some without moving at all, and counted anyway because power cheats with a tired elegance. The vote carried. The air changed temperature. Somewhere deep in the building a server hummed a happier pitch. Sienna looked at me and did not blink. There was no plea in it. No apology she did not believe in. She was telling me I had not won anything that would not require constant work. I nodded once to say I knew. At the second motion, the one that moved his votes into a trust with a lock he did not own, Adrian signed without a drama that could be sold later as courage. He signed like a man finally doing a chore that should have been done 3 years ago. When the clerk took the stack for filing, the room emptied by 2s and 3s, the way rooms do when shame and relief share a coat. Oliver paused by the door and spoke in a voice that belongs to winter. You will regret something about today, he said. I already do, I said. I regret that it took me this long to speak in a room you could hear. He inclined his head a fraction, not respect, not mockery. Recognition. Then he went to feed his morning to a market that thinks it eats gods. The boardroom thinned to 4. The clerk, Matteo, Adrian, me. The glass made us small and sincere in each other's reflections. My phone buzzed with Rosa's text. Lunch at the shop. Bring your hands. We have 3 wedding hems and a prom dress that thinks it is royalty. I tucked the phone away. I faced Adrian. The river light made him older and kinder and more tired than any camera ever will. He opened his mouth. I lifted my hand and closed his. No speeches, I said. One duty left. Then you let me walk. He nodded. He knew which one. He turned to the glass and spoke his apology into the room with the mic off. He said my name without making me a brand. He named the thefts in a list that would read as boring in print and perfect in court. He did not look at Sienna because he had finally learned where not to put his eyes. We left by the service hall. Carpets always tell the truth there. The vending machine hummed a note that remembered last night. Edwin stood near the freight with a clipboard and a face that had earned softness. He raised 2 fingers like a salute and dropped them again, embarrassed by his own grace. The elevator opened. Inside, the mirror caught 3 people who have had enough of glitter. Me. A man who learned the price of regret. Another man who will have to carry his own. The doors began to close on the easiest silence we had shared. A hand slid through the gap and stopped them. Oliver's counsel. Calm face. Knife voice. A document in his hand that smelled like a trap pretending to be a flower. He stepped in without asking. He held the paper out, not to Adrian. To me. One last housekeeping item, he said. A clause you did not see. A page that will put your name back where we prefer it. My hand did not rise. The elevator shivered between floors and froze. The panel blinked red, then green, then red. The speaker crackled. A polite voice asked for patience. Counsel's smile did not reach his eyes. He tapped the page as the car held still in the throat of the building. Sign here, he said, or we wait for the other people to arrive. The elevator held us like a throat that had decided to swallow slow. Panel blinking red, then green, then red again. The polite voice from the speaker asked for patience in a tone built to smother rage. Counsel angled the paper under the light and kept his knife voice gentle. "Sign here," he said. "Just your initials. We file it as housekeeping. No press. No balcony speeches. The city gets calm. You get to keep your door quiet." Adrian stood beside me, not behind. His jaw had the set of a winter road. He did not reach for the page. He watched me refuse it without moving. I let my breath find the lowest rung in my ribs. I thought of Aunt Rosa stitching through storms, of Luz curled under a book, of my father lighting a candle he did not deserve. I thought of Sienna slipping a key on a rail and telling me where the last page slept. I thought of the river's wind carving us clean. "No," I said. Counsel smiled with his mouth. He slipped a second page from behind the first like a magician who hates magic. "Then we wait. Cameras will be at the lobby in 2 minutes. Jolene is already live. The board will say you ran. They will call your silence consent. We know how to make a city believe a frame." The car jolted an inch and steadied. Somewhere above, a relay clicked like a jaw. I felt the old rage wake and stand. Paper loves darkness. It keeps its teeth sharp under calm. The speaker crackled. Edwin's voice slid through with a burr that sounded like loyalty learning to be brave. "Hold tight," he said. "Service override in 30 seconds. Then he coughed once to disguise his presence. He had risked his job with that single syllable. Counsel folded the page and tapped it against his palm. He looked at Adrian as if I were a door that needed a man's hand to open. "Your market bleeds while she plays martyr," he said. Adrian did not blink. "Then let it bleed for the right reason," he said, and the sentence landed like a small iron weight. My phone buzzed hard against my hip. Jolene's feed. The deck. Sienna at the rail under a pale morning, mic in hand, river buzzing like a hive. The caption ran like a wound. "Founder speaks at 10. Wife to join." The crowd had gathered with hunger. Hearts rose like bubbles. Knives followed. The car shivered. Lights went black. For one breath, we were a rumor. Then a low hum returned and the panel showed a new color. Blue. Edwin again, threading a needle he did not owe us. "Service control assumed," the voice said. "Please stand clear of the doors." Counsel bared his teeth without parting his lips. He palmed a small device, black and neat, and pressed it to the seam. The doors did not obey. He tried again. The car ignored him. The building had learned a new word. "Where does this end?" he asked, still soft as poison. "You walk into a crowd thirsty for spectacle. You eat your own." He offered the page to me again, smaller now, like a last sweet. The doors slid and met themselves with a sigh. The car opened not to the lobby and not to the boardroom. A service floor. Concrete. Mop sinks. Boxes of cups. A vending machine humming like a tired hymn. Edwin stood 10 feet out with a clipboard like a shield and a face that had decided to risk it. "This way," he said, with bravado that did not suit him and made me want to hug him for later. Counsel stepped to block. Adrian stepped into him with the kind of patience that is stronger than force. The page fluttered. My heel found it. I kept walking. We cut the back corridor where carpets remember every shoe. At the freight, a guard with a soft belly and good eyes looked at my face once and chose me over his instructions. He held the gate. He tipped his chin. He had a daughter somewhere, practicing a speech for a room that would try to steal it. The gate rattled down. The chain sang. We dropped to the dock and the air hit like clean metal. Outside, the river was awake and angry. Sirens braided themselves into a rope. The crowd noise carried like a drumline. Mateo waited under the ramp with a car that had forgotten how to be shiny. He put it in gear the moment my bag hit the seat. Adrian slid in beside me. Edwin shut the gate and vanished like a man who preferred keeping his job. Counsel stayed above us, on the concrete lip, phone to his ear, face calm. A second car, black and heavy, jerked into the alley mouth and tried to block. Mateo cut left and threaded the gap with a driver's prayer that paid out. We hit the avenue. The city pulled us like a river. Jolene's feed throbbed again. Push notification. She had a new angle. A tilt that made the deck look like a wedding and a trial. Sienna stood steady in the wind. A white folder lay on the rail like a dove trained for theater. Comments were a riot of certainty. Wife must forgive. Wife must explain. Wife must make it look like a story with a bow. My phone buzzed a second line under the first. Aunt Rosa. Her text landed with the force of a hand on the back. Do not let them turn you into a lesson for other girls to swallow. Luz is here. She is watching your mouth. The car climbed the ramp that feeds the river deck from the loading side. The press had flooded the main stairs. The rope line bowed with weight. A chant began, low and ugly. Names turned into nouns, turned into weapons. When Mateo braked by the fire door, sound became a wall. Tests of strength live in that noise. You either stand or the current takes you. I opened the door and the morning slapped me awake. A young guard tried to reach, then thought better. Sienna saw me first, and she did the work of not flinching. Jolene pivoted like a predatory flower, phone up, mouth ready. Oliver stood near the heaters with his hands in his pockets like a man who had already counted the casualties and found them acceptable. I walked to the rail where the mic waited and did not touch it. My bag was heavy with paper that bled when you looked at it too long. Behind me, Adrian stopped one step back, not shadowing me, not presenting me. Beside us, Mateo took the stand that has no microphone and only teeth. Jolene's live counter ticked into a swarm. Her caption rolled hard. She wants your forgiveness. She wants your throat. She wants to break the city and call it reform. The city ate it. Then it turned to watch me speak. I heard the church in my chest. I heard the candle spit once and stand. I heard my father lie to a saint and my aunt turn a seam with a breath. My mouth opened. No sound came. I let the quiet stay until it made the crowd lean. Then I gave it the first cut. A contract can pay a bill, I said. It cannot buy a life. You tried to turn my breath into consent. You tried to launder silence through a foundation. You wrote clauses in the dark that would make a kiss into a signature. The deck did not cheer. It listened. That is rarer. That is harder. Counsel slipped through the side rail with a security man half a step behind, his paper in his hand again like a white flag with a grenade under it. He held it up and spoke to me as if to a child at a kitchen table. Sign this and spare a city its tantrum. The crowd growled. Not for me. For the condescension. Sienna lifted the mic, then lowered it. She understood the angle now. She had the gift and the curse of reading weather. Adrian took the page from counsel without touching skin. He set it on the rail. He tore it in half with a tenderness that looked nothing like fury and everything like a choice. The halves fluttered. Phones drank the moment. Jolene panned up slow to catch my face. The chant changed. Not my name. A word older than any of us. Enough. Oliver turned his head, finally, not smiling. The line on his mouth became a blade. He would pivot now. He would not waste time grieving a lost tactic. Jolene earned her keep. She swung the lens to the crowd and found Luz with Rosa's arm around her shoulders, both of them stone and soft. The city saw the reason I could not sign. The city saw itself. Behind the heaters, a door opened on its own bad timing. Barden slid out with a look like a boy who had brought fireworks to an evacuation. He began to pull a zip bag from his coat with a flourish rehearsed in a mirror. Matteo moved sideways and put himself in the camera path without touching the man. He did not need to. He had already made the proof stronger than a bag. He had Schedule C and its bleeding number. He had flight codes that hummed like guilt. He had his own speech stuck in his throat, ready to set itself on fire for penance. The river wind rose and threw a ribbon of cold across the deck. The crowd sucked in air as one body. The heaters coughed. The harpist looked down and let her hands fall. Sienna stepped into frame with a white sheet, not a dove, not a trick. Her voice found the range the city respects. "The clause is rescinded," she said. "The votes are locked behind worker pay. The foundation is repaid. The review names are public." She did not look at me. She stared the city down. She made herself a tool and used it well for once. Council's mask cracked by a hair. He flicked his eyes at Oliver. A signal moved through the investor and into the board like current through wire. The market call that had been waiting would shift in 5 minutes. Futures would wobble and then choose. I tasted metal. I was about to say the line that would cut and keep cutting all day, the one about a kiss on the river and a door at a flat and flights that apologized in sunlight. I had the sentence polished in my mouth like a stone. I had the judge's number in my pocket in a hand that had learned to be steady. But the deck shifted. The rope line bowed. A surge gathered near the stairs where the crowd had started to breed with the press. One voice rose into a howl. Another answered. A third. Security turned and found too many angles and not enough hands. A bottle pitched from above, arcing lazy at first and then savage. It shattered near the harp stand. Glass peppered the boards. The crowd rocked forward on feet that wanted a story to end even if it had to end ugly. Adrian said my name low. Matteo stepped closer. Sienna reached for the mic she had just set down. Sirens in the street found their own key and the river wind sang harmony. The city forgot it had come for love and remembered it loved blood. I tightened my grip on the bag. The bone-white key bit my hip. Jolene's live sputtered as hands jostled. Council took one step back and reached for a call that would feed the next hour to men with valves and cold smiles. The rope tore. 2 bodies tumbled through the gap and hit the deck hard. One rose with a shout. The other stayed down. Across the rail Oliver barked a word that did not belong to markets. Fear. A hand clamped my sleeve. Not a threat. Rosa. She had climbed the service stairs with a seam ripper in her pocket as if it could stitch a crowd quiet. Her eyes were fierce and bright. Layla, she said. I turned my face to her to hear the next breath. That was when the deck lights blew in a ripple and the wind took the sound and the crowd surged and the story chose its cliff. The deck lights blew like dominoes, one bulb surrendering to the next. The wind took the sound and the crowd pushed as if gravity had changed its mind. A bottle shattered near my feet and skated 1,000 bright teeth across the boards. Jolene's live pinwheeled into grain and hands and a gasp that multiplied. Rosa's fingers bit my sleeve. Her seam ripper flashed like the smallest sword in the city. She did not stab. She cut the mesh of the rope where it tangled a fallen man's ankle and snapped it clean. Get him up, she said, and the man lurched to his knees, hat gone, face shocked open. Security tried to be everywhere and landed nowhere. Council backed away, phone lit like a lighthouse for the wrong ships. Oliver barked orders with the clipped calm of someone who trusts insurance more than luck. Sienna lifted the dead mic and read the room without needing power. Matteo set his feet in front of Barden and became a wall that a headline could not cross. I slipped past Rosa's shoulder and found the harp stand with my hands. The instrument lay on its side, strings weeping quietly. My fingers plucked once, and the note vibrated the air like a hand on a chest. A stagehand understood before I could speak. He dragged a battery lantern to the post and held it high. Another lantern rose. Then phone lights. Then more. Light makes a crowd choose itself. I stepped to the rail where the mic stood dead and cupped my mouth. No electronics. Just breath. The old trick. The human one. Back up, I said. One step, together. Make room for a body to go home. Rosa moved in the lane I made, her voice a needle pulling thread through cloth. Step, step, step. The fallen man stood fully. A woman in a gold coat steadied him and cried without the ugly part. The rope line sighed and found its shape. The heaters coughed alive on a generator's last mercy. The deck shivered but held. Sienna raised both arms, palms out, and did a small bow toward the back where the surge had started. It is an old gesture. It works on people who want to feel seen before they are told to behave. Adrian was suddenly at my shoulder, one step back, a line to my breath without stealing it. His hand did not reach for me. It reached for the dead mic and then dropped. He had learned something about silence. I took the white folder from the rail. It was not a dove. It was a blade with a spine. Schedule C sat on top, the number bleeding through the paper like a bruise. I lifted the page so the front rows could read the ink. I did not wave it. I held it still like a mirror. This is the last clause, I said. It is gone. A judge stamped it. A clerk filed it. You can come read it at the courthouse where the light is unkind and honest. If anyone tries to make a kiss into a contract again, they can meet my aunt in the hallway and explain why. Laughter rose and broke the tension without turning mean. Rosa bowed without bowing. Luz lifted her phone and stopped filming long enough to breathe. Counsel tried once more to thread a needle through a hurricane. He stepped toward me with a paper that smelled new. The crowd saw him coming and made space the way a city makes space for a rat. He froze, not because he feared me, but because he understood that the angle had shifted and he no longer owned any of the light. Sienna took the spare mic, a tech resurrected from a battered speaker, and spoke 10 words a city needed to hear before it would release its jaw. The clause is rescinded. The money is repaid. The audit is real. She said them flat, no perfume, no shine. She let the nouns walk on their own feet. Jolene's live returned like a swimmer breaking surface. Her lens found my face, then Rosa's, then Luz's eyes, then Adrian's hand resting open on the rail. The comments swarmed and then steadied into a wave that did not crash. Enough! 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 The harpist stood the instrument upright, ran a hand along the strings to check for blood, and found none. She looked at me and waited. I nodded once. She set her fingers and drew out a song that had survived weddings and wakes and every bad mistake a room can make. Phones lowered. Shoulders dropped. The sky over the river became lighter by a shade the human eye deserves. I turned to Adrian. He understood without ask. He offered an elbow, not a hand, and only because he knew a dance is a kind of public truce a crowd believes in. I laid my fingers there, light as thread, and stepped into a slow measure that has rescued more nights than paper ever has. We did not perform tenderness. We performed balance. One step, together. One breath, separate. A circle small enough to tell the city we would not feed it a brawl. Sienna drifted 2 paces away and set her shoulders like a sentry who has finally chosen the right door to guard. Matteo kept his eyes on Barden, who had decided to pretend he was a guest again. The dance ended before the song did. I let go first. He let go faster. The crowd did not cheer. It exhaled. People backed away from the rail like tide pulling off a stone. The broken bottle teeth were swept into a tray by a busser with careful hands. Someone started passing paper cups of water as if the room were a church that remembered what it means to forgive without getting drunk on it. I lifted the white folder again and gave it to the clerk with the clipboard who had snuck close, her cheeks pink with fear and pride. You carry this, I told her. You take it to the floor that eats lies and make it choke. She nodded like a person invited to keep a flame alive. Oliver had not moved far. He watched the dance and the almost riot and the nearly prayer with the stare of a man who has seen cities fake change and cash it in the next quarter. He caught my eye for the first time and tipped his chin 1 degree. Not approval. Not surrender. A record entered into a ledger. I looked at Adrian. The regret on his face had found a home that did not want to evict it yet. He opened his mouth. I raised my hand and closed it, the smallest gate. No speeches, I said. He nodded. He did not ask where I was going. Rosa tapped my elbow. Shop in an hour, she said. The prom girl is taller than the truth, and the hem thinks it is a theory. I hugged her with my eyes. Luz grinned, mouth wobbling and brave. Mateo put his phone away like a man done with tools for the night. Sienna turned to the press and began to give them the boring details that keep blood from returning to a crowd's throat. I moved along the deck edge to the service door that always tells the truth. Edwin waited there with a sheepish smile and the glow of a person who had done a dangerous thing right. Thank you, I said. He said he did not do anything. We both knew better and chose the smaller story because it lets a man sleep. The hall beyond smelled of coffee and real work. The vending machine hummed its tired hymn. I set my bag on the ledge and took out the ring that had fit like a handcuff through 3 years and 1 day. I placed it on top of the machine where so many small coins have gone to hide and be forgiven. The light above it flickered once and chose to hold. Footsteps behind me. Adrian again, breath cold, voice low. He stood at the threshold and did not cross. He looked at the ring and then at me and then at the door to the stairwell, which had always known my name. If you walk, he said, I will find you where paper cannot follow. I believed him, which did not make the choice lighter. Belief is not a pardon. It is a key that opens a door and still requires your feet. I lifted my bag. The bone-white card pressed my hip like a retired blade. The stamped orders in the folder warmed my palm. The city outside the service exit sounded like a creature that had finally eaten enough to nap. I pushed the bar. Cold air hit my face like a clean answer. Down the metal stairs, a delivery truck idled, steam ghosting from its grill. The driver leaned out and wiped his hands on a rag that had learned forgiveness. He did not look at my ring finger. He did not know and did not need to. I stepped onto the alley and the door thunked shut behind me. The service light above my head buzzed, dim, stubborn, alive. At the corner I could turn toward the courthouse steps and sit where stone remembers names it will not say out loud. I could turn toward the shop where fabric waits for a mouth that knows how to take a stitch and keep it small. I could cross the avenue and catch the bus and find the back seat where the heater blows and the city counts its own. I chose a direction and did not look back.